He boasted also about his administration's proposals he believes will bring down rising home prices, among other things. Joining us now with charts, former Treasury official, Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner. Steve, good morning. Good to see you. Before we get into your first chart, just absorbing what we heard from the president there, what do you make of what he's saying and the story he's trying to tell about this economy?
I think you and Joe covered it pretty well. He's like King Canute, trying to part the waters and claim something's happening that isn't happening. And there are a lot of false claims. For example, he claims that he brought $18 trillion of new investment into the United States, but his own website only says it was $9.6 trillion, and that's probably exaggerated. He talks about, as Joe mentioned, the highest growth in history, but growth last year in 2025 was lower than it was in 2024 under Biden. So he's trying to, by just simply making up these facts, somehow convince the American people that he's on track. And then, of course, to deny the affordability crisis is just laughable. Incomes have gone up, as he said, but prices have gone up almost as fast. And what he also didn't say is income inequality actually widened last year. The people at the bottom did worse than the people at the top. For the first time in several years, they did better under Biden at the top than at the bottom.
So, Steve, there's the cost of groceries, the cost of gas day to day, and then in your first chart, you're looking at the cost of just having a roof over your head, how expensive housing has gotten.
It was interesting because he didn't mention housing until he was about 40 minutes into the speech. And then it was simply 3 sentences, less than a minute of his 45 minutes on housing, because I think he may recognize that this is a problem and he hasn't got really a solution. So let's go back and take a look at what the problem is for starters. So essentially, if you go all the way back to 2000, housing has generally gone up faster than incomes. This is median household income. This is the price, the cost of buying a house. This is the cost of renting. You can see that the cost of buying a house has gone up over 280%. In other words, it's almost tripled, while incomes have gone up by far less. And what's particularly interesting here is you can just see with your eye how much it has spiked since 2020 and how house prices have just run away from the average American. So that's the problem. And then you combine that with interest rates. Now, he loves to bash Jerome Powell and claim these interest rates are his fault. I won't get into the weeds on this, but just take it from me. The Fed does not control mortgage rates. It controls short-term interest rates, doesn't control mortgage rates. Those are controlled by other factors that I won't get into today. But when you combine higher interest rates with higher home prices, the cost to a family of affording a house has roughly doubled. For a typical $400,000 house, it was about $1,000 a month in payments. Between the higher cost of the house and the higher mortgage payments, it's now $2,000 a month. So this is the affordability crisis in housing that, as I said, Trump really didn't get into at all yesterday.
And part of what's driving that, Steve, as we move to your second chart, is just a shortage of housing, not a lot of inventory out there.
Yeah, that it's, supply and demand like so many other parts of the economy. And so you can see if you go back to 2000, we were building about 1.5 million new houses a year. And then before the financial crisis, and there was a lot of cheap money around, frankly, housing starts went all the way up to about 2.25 million per year. And then you had the financial crisis and they went down to 500,000. They've never come back for a variety of reasons. They've never come back, and now they're even slightly softer at about 1.25 million houses being built. And the reasons really relate to affordability, that people can't necessarily afford these houses, so you don't build them. They relate to interest rates are higher, which again is not Jerome Powell's fault. They relate to difficulties in permitting and zoning, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But when you put it all together, these are 5 reputable forecasters of all different sorts, and the estimates of how short we are on housing range from 2.8 million down here from JP Morgan all the way up to 4.9 million here. Obviously, building more houses would put downward pressure on prices and make them more affordable for Americans.
So let's talk about how the president, how this administration proposes to help with all of this, given the data you just showed us. In the third chart, Donald Trump has thrown out this idea of a 50-year mortgage. He's recently said that he doesn't want investment firms to buy individual homes. Is any of this going to help?
Yeah, he repeated a bunch of these yesterday and also said he was going to make a major speech on housing at Davos next week. I'm not sure why you go to Davos to talk about housing in America, but that's not my problem. But as you said, he's made a number of suggestions, proposals, whatever you want to call them, and let's take a look at them. First, there has been a bit of a trend of large investment firms buying groups of houses and then renting them out. But let's put that in perspective. Big investors own less than 1% of the houses. Most of them are owned by families, individuals. A few smaller investors, somebody might own a couple houses or a small apartment building. But big investors are not a major factor in this. And by the way, if they own this house, they're going to rent it out. The house isn't like going offline or something like that. So then he threw out the other day the idea of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which, as you know, are the big government mortgage companies, buying $200 billion of mortgage bonds to try to bring mortgage rates down because, as I said, that is not something the Fed controls. Sounds like a lot of money, except for one little problem. There's $12 trillion of mortgage debt outstanding. $200 billion doesn't make a dent in $12 trillion. That will have no effect on house prices. And then lastly, they've thrown out the idea of a 50-year mortgage instead of the 30-year mortgage with the concept that it would stretch out payments, make payments per month lower, and thereby make it more affordable. But let's look at the math on that. Typical $400,000 house, 6.5% mortgage. Your payments would actually go down if you went from a 30-year mortgage to a 50-year mortgage. Your payments go down from $2,023 to $1,804, so about $200 is all you would save per month. That is not going to solve the housing problem either.
Wow, a lot to digest there. Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner with his charts. Steve, thank you as always. You know, John, as we were talking about, as comfortable and excited in some ways as President Trump is when he talks about scenes in the streets of Minnesota or blowing up drug boats off of Venezuela or seizing Greenland, he is uncomfortable talking about this issue of affordability. It was on full display yesterday where he's trying to present an affordability agenda while attacking the idea that affordability is a real issue.
It shows just how he dislikes suggesting that everything's not perfect in Donald Trump's presidency. And he keeps trying to blame the policies of his predecessor. He's been in office for a year now. That act is tired. And this is, as I wrote this week about this flurry of activity, this pure id that's been on display from Trump since the start of 2026, Republicans still think, they acknowledge, like, this election, these midterms are probably going to be won or lost on the economy, on affordability, on prices. And the White House has rolled out a few small programs, Rev, to see if they can tackle some of this, although even the Congress has suggested, like the credit card fee thing, we're not interested. But I know what doesn't help the economy is when you launch a criminal investigation into the Fed chair, which, of course, undermines like some of the fundamentals of what provides stability for the whole system.
Well, when we're dealing with interest rates, we're dealing with things that directly is impacted by the Fed. And for you, seeming only on vindictive reasons and because you want to control where the interest rates go, announce a criminal investigation. This, again, speaks to many American voters like we are in a place in this country that we see in dictatorships. Because what are we going after power for other than you want to control the interest rates and therefore how you can spend the economy? And I think that this will backfire on them politically. Jerome Powell is certainly not one you can portray as some left-wing lunatic or whatever else they call people. And I think that this is something that will backfire.
And Mika, because of all that, we've seen Republicans running away from this idea of prosecuting Jerome Powell publicly in ways they don't speak publicly against the president. Many of them now saying, let's just turn and walk away from this issue. We've got other stuff to look at.
Yeah. All right.
You know, I mean, the problem is, of course, that it shakes up the markets. It shakes up confidence. That's why you had the Treasury Secretary saying, man, telling the president, this is a mess.
Yeah.
This is a mess. Don't do it. It's why you have Republicans doing the same thing on the banking committee saying, don't do this. This is the wrong way to go. You had the president a couple of days ago, before the Powell investigation was announced, the New York Times reporting that he was yelling at prosecutors, saying they're being too weak. These are the sort of things that are getting into the way of the message the president needs to get out to win. Like, for instance, over the past couple of weeks, He could have talked about what he's trying to do with pharmaceutical prices, but that gets drowned out by a woman getting shot in the head at point blank range. He could be talking about trying to limit how the percentage that people can be charged on their credit cards as far as interest rates go. Free market conservatives don't like it, but a lot of Americans, a lot of independents would like that. The same thing with his proposal to stop big investors from swooping in and buying single-family homes, right? That takes a lot of good homes off of the market. These are things, again, traditional conservatives wouldn't like, but a lot of independents would like. But that's never going to get through, Mika, when you're having images coming out of the Twin Cities of Minnesota that looks like they're coming out of Moscow or St. Petersburg.
No, the best approach is pretty simple. Don't make a mess.